I don't know why what you just said made me think of a question that didn't even make my outline, but this is going to be an important thing, I think. So, one of the things I noticed that you do consistently is you will be
Hmm.
performing live and you will go live at your venue, wherever you are, and you will keep your show live for the entirety of your show. You are literally giving
Yeah,
your social media following a chance to see your show and not go to the venue. I want to hear
yeah,
from your perspective. What is the strategy behind that? Because a lot of artists don't feel doing that is copacetic to getting people into the venue. Because if you go live, you're essentially telling people you don't have to come to the venue because I'm going to go live anyway.
right,
But people still come to your shows all the time. So
right, yeah.
what's the strategy there for that?
I think like right now, I think that it's I put a cap on that per month, like how many times I stream live. So in the course of a month, I may play anywhere from 22 to 24 shows a month, depending on how busy that month is. And out of those 22 shows, I may only live stream 5 for the entirety.
Mm-hmm.
But it gives venues that don't have it. I use it as a tool later to book other venues and say, look, if you want to know what I sound like live, 100% the way that I sound live, you can click on my profile and go down and be like, this is the entire show. Like, this is my entire show. I'm giving you the entire show, not just one snippet.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can put your headphones in and listen to that entire show while you're doing work,
Right.
and just decide on what you want to do. And it's helped. That part has helped me tremendously in other areas besides just East Texas. But it's usually I usually only live stream at restaurants that already have like built-in crowds anyway, who have great food. Like Tia's. I'll live stream from Tia's. Well, they have great food that brings people in, and it's not just me.
So
They
your
have great food
background
and great.
essentially.
Yeah, and so it's also advertisement for them too, that they have music and they have this, that, and the other, and people can see that. Oh man, that's a really cool looking place, or
Man, I love to hear your thoughts on this because, as you know, I do something very similar with my channel where we will go out and see an artist. Sometimes it's a friend of mine like you. Sometimes it's not. It's
Mm-hmm.
somebody I've never met before or somebody that's new to me, and I'm looking forward to going to learn somebody new. But typically, what we do, we don't typically do the whole show unless it's a 2 hour show. But we'll
Right,
usually record and film one set, and then we'll put it out as something called East Texas Music Live. And the thoughts behind that are very similar to what you're talking about. Number one, it lets people know that the venue has music. That's for first and
yeah,
foremost. So if I have people from Mineola that are following my channel, now they may know that the RNA Tavern has music on Sundays. So that's the first one,
right, yeah,
right? And then the second one is I have music fans that are following my platforms, and I'd love to introduce new artists to those people. And the best way to do that is not just necessarily with a one song snippet. Sometimes it's just that interaction between artist and venue and artist and audience over the course of an entire set that really will turn somebody on to a new artist because it shows who you are as a person, not just as an artist. And that's
right,
a lot of the reasons why we put that stuff out there. But I also know artists that are very, I don't want to say annoyed or aggravated by people that do that, but that's probably too strong a word, but very probably apprehensive to put their content out there in a full form, like a long form like that. And I understand the
yeah.
risks in that as well, and I'm sure you do also.
Oh,
Um,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
but anyway, that's neither here nor there. I don't know why that popped up while you were talking about great food and stuff, but it is what it is. So looking back at your earlier projects, obviously you are a much different performance artist now than you were in the band The Papers and Kid
Yeah.
Icarus and some of the other bands that you've been a part of. Is there anything you wish you had done differently in your early days, looking back now as a more experienced artist?
I think that well, when I
I know,
in the
loaded
papers,
loaded question, right? Loaded
yeah, yeah,
question.
yeah. It's a double loaded question. I will say, I wish I didn't had I wish I hadn't had drank so much, because I've been more creative, and I was trying to. I hate to say this, but like as a deep down type thing that I've come to terms with is that I always drank because I thought that whatever I had to get in character, and so it's like before the shows I would just get bombed because that guy is the guy that was on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get in character. And then it was not the guy who was at home. It was not the guy who was at the grocery store or all this other kind of stuff. But the guy that was on stage was the bomb guy who went crazy and running around and that kind of thing. And I had to get to that level all the time. It was one of those things that I had to learn how to write while messed up. I know that sounds weird, but if I had any regrets that I could take back, it was that I would not have done that, and we would have been a more successful band if I wouldn't have had done that.
Right. I love that you say it that way, because the next question I have it fits very well with your answer here. Now you've grown up, you've experienced a lot more life over the time, and I'm sure your songwriting has evolved in a way, maybe even matured. And so we're talking about alcohol and sobriety. That there's going to be massive differences between your alcoholic fueled content and your sobriety fueled content. And life experience is also going to take shape through those processes too. So what has life taught you from a songwriting perspective?
It from a songwriting perspective, there's sometimes I go back and I'll listen to some of the audio from back then and think to myself, man, it's a pretty decent song, but it's just one-sided. Like it's completely one-sided because I'm writing from a perspective of a guy who's one-sided.
A very limited outlook, right?
Yeah, you're looking through a focal lens that is like the size of a needle.
Right.
Instead of being like when you're sober, you can see from where everybody else is seeing everything, and you have clarity in front of you, and so you're seeing from all these different sides. Like maybe I was selfish in writing what I wrote, in one of my lines that I was writing. Like I was totally selfish writing that. I should have never wrote that. Like, and I tell people this all the time. I was like, that people that me now. I was telling a buddy of mine the other day. I said, me now, I would punch my old self in the face. Mm-hmm. Like we're two different entities, but in the same person. Mm-hmm. But I said, in order for me to live, I had to kill that guy.
Yeah, it's funny you say it. It's funny you say it that way because using a sports analogy here, you and I are both big sports fans. A good quarterback knows how to play quarterback, right? But a great quarterback knows how to play quarterback and understands everybody else's job on the offense as well. And that's the difference between being limited and narrow and being good, or being relevant and more widespread and being great, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It's 100%. Yeah. It feels the same way. It feels the same way. It's like now when I write songs, they're personal, but they're personal because they're real personal. They're not make-believe personal.
Right.
They're not. Right. Does that make any sense?
The creation is easier because it's real. The creation is not. Yeah, it's not made up. Exactly. So, again, your answers keep segueing me right into my next question, man. I have to have you on more.
It's a good lineup of questions.
Yeah, thank you, man. So, have you found as you've gotten older, especially within your art, that your music kind of resonates with different audiences now than it did then, and not just from a genre perspective, but just from a music perspective?
Yeah. From a music perspective, it's gotten now to where it's really strange. Kind of comes full circle a little bit, like, but. My music back then was just for like young partying type people. Like it was made for the party crowd that was their entire reason was to come to drink with us, to come do all sort of kind of stuff, But now it's more like my music is more, because the songwriting is more broad and more open. It's it's just that, like, the ages are completely all over the chart, like, and I get people coming up, like young people and older people, and like right down the middle, my age or whatever, and I mean, it's really cool. Like it's a cool way of almost coming full circle. But but like I'll even have, like, 18, 19 year olds being like, man, I love that song. I love that song. And I was like, oh yeah, I appreciate that. But like, an old man wrote that song,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
in my head, like I'm a, you know, 25-plus-year-old writer. I've been writing for 20 years. So
Do you ever stand back and look at that and actually take umbrance of it? Like, like, wow, I did that. I did that. You know what I mean? Do you ever
man,
look at it
I'll
like
be
that?
honest, there's only been like maybe like 3 or 4 songs where I stand back, I mean, like, dang, I can't believe I wrote that.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of those kind of songs that, like, I have with the Papers. There was a song called Lately, and people ask for that song to this day at shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why do you guys like that song? Like, I wrote that. I was 19 years old. I wrote that song. I didn't know what I was talking about. And what it was just, my feelings as a young person. Like, even though I didn't know really how to share them, they were like ghosted on paper almost. Like, they were like, I was writing them, but in like cryptic messages for my future self, I guess. And then I
Yeah.
go back and like read the lyrics to that song, and I'm like, hey, it's not bad, young me. That's not bad.
Not bad. I love that though. Sometimes, man, artists are very hard on themselves when it comes to giving
Oh
themselves
yeah,
flowers. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
that's why, like, it's important to me when I love somebody and I'm a fan, not just a friend. Like, I'm your friend, but I'm a big fan of yours too. So it's
yeah.
important to me to let you know, as your friend, how amazing you are, because I know you're super humble, and we all deal with the
Oh
mental
yeah.
health aspects of creativeness and stuff like that. Am I good enough, and stuff like that. So I feel like that's important. If you're a fan of an artist out there, guys, I implore you, speak, encourage, love, be kind. You'd be surprised how much fuel that gives to somebody. You just don't
Yeah.
even know.